Pulp or no pulp? OJ and LA. Not that kind. I mean orange juice and lemonade. Do you prefer pulp or no pulp? Kind of a pulp guy myself. I like that little starburst going off in your mouth while you drink your beverage. It's like a beverage plus. But we're not here to talk about beverages today. I'm Randy Brown, creator of Fists and Fiends, and today I want to talk to you about pulp or no pulp in role-playing games. When I started Dungeons and Dragons way back in the day, there was no pulp. It was very easy for characters to die. So you could literally start with 1 hit point if you had a bad roll when you were building your character. So pulp to me is when a game has super high hit points and it's hard for the characters to die that the players are using, and it's hard for them to kill bad guys for some arbitrary reason called hit points. Now, I understand some of it because if you have 5 or 6 players versus 1 monster, the monster needs to be harder to kill, and you want rules that a dungeon master or game master can easily pick up and get to the table. So they just have this arbitrary number that this monster has 70 hit points and is hard to kill when most of the players maybe have 10 or 11. How do you explain that a human character goes from, say, 6 hit points, and after they keep leveling up, somehow ends up with 60 or 70 hit points themselves? What is making that happen? Does their skin get tougher with time? Are their kidney stones chipping off the tips of swords? It makes no sense. Because it's not that they're harder to hit, because that's armor class. So that's a different rating that defines that. So this arbitrary number that just makes things drag out the combat, I didn't really care for. Didn't really think about it either, though, to be honest with you. When I started Fists and Fiends, I needed an engine quickly to put something to the table, dice mechanics and all that. And the engine I used was awesome, but it was very pulpy. The characters, when they started, mostly had 20 plus hit points, and the bad guys had upper 20s and 30s. But something pivotal happened in 2022. I went to PAX East, and at the time I thought Fists and Fiends was almost done, which is pretty laughable now, 3 years later, seeing how much work it took to finish it. I'm walking through PAX East, and I come across a booth for a company called Free League, who I'd never heard of. They had some really cool looking books. I stop and start picking them up. Guy running the booth comes over and super nice, very knowledgeable, starts talking to me about their games and my game. And we had a great conversation going, and he's showing me through a few of the different games that they make. One feeling stood out above all the others. Envy. Seriously, I was envious. Very envious. I saw this gritty survival type atmosphere that the game created just by the basic rule system underneath. And I thought, wow, this would be really cool for a martial arts game. And then they had all of these extensive crit tables. So unlike the games that I had played, when you roll a crit on a bad guy, the game master or you and the game master just come up with some fantastical story about some awesome thing you did, but there isn't really a definition of what happened. Now, having trained martial arts for 26 plus years, I'm well aware of the damage that can be done when you hit people in certain places and certain types of injuries that can happen. So when I saw these crit tables, I also thought, wow, taking something like that and then adding martial arts knowledge and background and really building that out would be amazing. But again, it's like, what am I going to do? My game is about ready to come out. I can't just rebuild it. So I walked away. I bought one of the books, one of the games, and I walked away very intrigued and enlightened. And overall happy, even though I was envious. But Something else happened that year, and I won't get into the details on it in this video, but I was forced into a corner with the game where I couldn't release it the way that I had built it. And it was an opportune moment to go back to the drawing board with the engine. And I took a lot of inspiration from the Year Zero engine that I saw at PAX East that Free League used. So I went to work, and what ended up happening was I had a very gritty, drop down, drag out, action oriented game that was coming to life just from removing hit points and creating agency by the characters can easily die just as well as being able to kill the bad guys. Now, this is more akin to reality. Just because you're a trained martial artist doesn't mean you're invincible. I know a lot of us grew up watching the movies, and that can be maybe a shock to you, but people get knocked out, even trained fighters. And people get their arms broken, their ankles tweaked, their knees blown out. Mistakes happen, and there is a thing called size. Does matter. So in order to defeat size, you need to be more technical, and you have to have better skill. But it doesn't remove the fact that a novice martial artist, so say a new character, goes out into the world, they're not just an automatic badass. They have an advantage over somebody with no training, but that doesn't mean that they're invincible. And it shouldn't be hard to defeat them. A lucky hit, a bad guy with a club that gets a good smack. So what ends up happening is the players have to then approach every scenario with the question of not should we fight or not fight. It's a martial arts game. You're not there to avoid conflict. You're there to get into conflict. Now, you could say there's verbal combat in the game as well. There's chase combat for when you do have to run away. But ultimately, you are put into a box where you're forced to fight. And that's where the mission types come in. Is they're forcing the players into a box where you don't really have a choice, is you are going to have to fight. And when that fight takes place, the players around the table are forced to work together. If they don't, it gets much more difficult to succeed. So they have to work together, and they have to also think about every action that they are going to take. Is that a good idea? That person has a club, I don't. That person has a spear. And in Fists and Fiends, weapons have ranges that they're effective at. And the longer the weapon, the harder it is to get in on them if you don't have a weapon. Or if you have a sword and they have a spear, it takes an extra success for you to be able to get in, because you have to get by the tip of that spear in order to be able to reach your target. So now we're talking about something that just through the mechanics is driving agency and urgency. It's driving anxiety and tension, and the combat is more fast-paced because you don't have this arbitrary number where the players are just trying to bring down this super large number and get it to zero. The crits are also where we start to add in a lot of extra flavor, because when you reach zero with any attribute, or an NPC hits zero, now we roll a crit based on the type of attack and the target that's most likely to hit. So some things, like submissions, already have a predetermined crit. If you're doing an arm bar on somebody or a knee bar, then that's an automatic. If you break them, meaning you got them to zero, then that means you broke their arm. That means you broke their knee. But a punch is going to depend on the type of punch. Is it a punch that goes towards the head? Is it a punch that goes towards the body? If it's body, then we're going to roll in a crit table that has body targets. Oh, did you hit them in the liver and knock them out? Did you just knock the wind out of them? Did you just knock them down on the ground? Or did you hit them in the bladder? Make them wet themselves. There are a variety of crits that can happen that don't necessarily mean that you killed the person, but they are broken and no longer effective in the fight. And likewise, when the players get broken, these crit tables activate as well. So, funny story, I had one player that was playing an Eagle Claw Boxer, and I think it was his first time playing or second time. And in that particular mission, something happens, bad guys come in, and one of them throws a stink bomb. Everybody tries to dive out of the way. He fails to get clear, and his arm gets blown off. Now, Eagle Claw Boxer is a submission specialist. They're a grappler. Having two arms is kind of crucial to their function. And he was very discouraged when that happened. He was ready. I think he even balled up his character sheet and was throwing it to the side. And I implored him to keep the character. Please, just humor me. Play the character out. Let's see what happens. So they ended up actually winning the mission, and they got him back to the fortress. He was able to take his character, and he had to heal for 10 days as the wound started to cover over. And in that time, he started to practice with a sword that they had got from that battle. So he became a one-arm swordsman in the game, went around and actually became a super badass. That character survived several missions when most of the other players lost their characters. And he ended up falling in love with the character. One mission, one of the NPCs got their arm cut off, and he literally picked it up and beat another NPC with that character's arm. Beat them to death. So he started using limbs as clubs, and it was very comical. Great story. Excellent story that would not have happened if he had just thrown that character away. So crits and injuries that happen not just to the NPCs but to the players can give you amazing stories and challenges for the players to have to overcome. Again, agency, grit, things that are difficult and challenging are what create the richest and most powerful stories. That decision making is what really try to capture in Fists and Fiends. You have to decide, is this going to be the right approach? Should everybody run in and just dive into the combat, or should we try to strategically place ourselves in the scene, behind a table, behind a desk? Should we get behind the rock? Should we climb up on a rock? What is going on in the game with the enemy that's forcing you to make these decisions? And if you have this high hit point value, you don't have to make those decisions. If you have a lot of armor, you're not forced to feel that tension and anxiety of, that pause where you have to make a critical decision in that moment. That could mean the end of your character. That's what I got for you today. Pulp or no pulp? Where do you stand? Do you like pulp or no pulp, and why? Leave your answer in the comment section. I look forward to reading them.